One of the most revealing moments in early Islamic history occurred when Muslim authorities returned an entire tax to the very people who had paid it. During the 7th century, after Muslim forces took control of parts of Greater Syria, non-Muslim communities paid Jizya, a civic tax exchanged for protection. When a large Byzantine counterattack forced Muslim armies to withdraw and they could no longer guarantee safety, the commanders ordered that all jizya be returned in full. Their reasoning was simple and explicit. If protection could not be provided, the tax was no longer legitimate. This moment matters because it defines what jizya actually was, a contract tied to responsibility, not domination. Jizya was a historical tax applied in certain Islamic states to non-Muslim citizens living under Muslim governance. The word itself comes from an Arabic root meaning compensation or contribution. It was never designed as a punishment for belief, but as part of a broader system that organized military duty, taxation, and civil rights in a multi-religious society. In classical Islamic law, Muslims were required to pay zakat and were obligated to defend the state. Military service in the pre-modern world was compulsory, dangerous, and often lifelong. Non-Muslims, primarily Christians, Jews, and Zoroastrians, were exempt from both zakat and military service. In exchange, they paid jizya, which guaranteed state protection, freedom of worship, legal security, and communal autonomy. Jizya was not universal or harshly imposed. Women, children, the elderly, the poor, monks, the disabled, and those unable to work were exempt. The amount varied based on income and local conditions. Islamic legal texts consistently stress that it must be affordable, collected with dignity, and never enforced through humiliation. If a non-Muslim fell into poverty, the state treasury was obligated to support them rather than extract payment. The episode in Greater Syria powerfully illustrates the principle behind jizya. When Muslim authorities realized they could not protect the population, they acknowledged that the moral and legal basis for the tax no longer existed. The money was returned. Contemporary records, including non-Muslim sources, note that this act left a lasting impression because it demonstrated that the tax was conditional on protection, not conquest. This concept of taxation tied to protection stands in stark contrast to many modern systems. Today, individuals and communities pay taxes to states that claim responsibility for their safety, security, and rights. Yet in many cases, even when those payments are made consistently and legally, protection is absent. Communities are left exposed to violence, displacement, or neglect, while the state retains its revenue without accountability. There is no refund, no acknowledgment of failure, and no contractual recognition that protection was the reason the payment existed in the first place. In pre-modern Islamic governance, the relationship was explicit. No protection meant no tax. In modern governance, the relationship is often abstract, bureaucratic, and unresponsive. The obligation flows in one direction, while responsibility is rarely enforced in the other. Historically, across regions such as Egypt, Iraq, Andalusia, and the Ottoman lands, jizya allowed religious minorities to maintain their churches, synagogues, courts, and internal leadership. In many cases, the tax burden was lighter than under previous Byzantine or Persian rule. While abuses did occur, as they did in all empires, those abuses were violations of Islamic legal principles, not their foundation. In the modern era, jizya no longer functions as a policy. Contemporary Muslim-majority states operate under unified tax systems where all citizens are taxed equally regardless of religion. Jizya belongs to a historical context where governance was personal, contractual, and explicitly tied to protection. At its core, jizya was not about belief, humiliation, or coercion. It was about responsibility. And the moment Muslim authorities returned the tax when they could no longer protect their citizens, remains one of the clearest historical examples of accountability in governance, an example that still challenges modern states today.